loading. Okay, and we are good to go.
Good morning, and I'll call this meeting to order at 10:05. That's pretty good with all the people you had to sign in, Brianne. That's absolutely excellent. All right, can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Moved by Councilor Richardson, seconded by Steve Lane. All those in favor? And that motion's carried. And can I have a motion to adopt the minutes of the last meeting, the March 4th meeting? Moved by Carolyn, seconded by Don Mitchell. All those in favor? And that motion's carried. Okay, so we're going to get right into it. We have 26 deputations. You are limited to 5 minutes. We will give you notice ahead of time. We'll let you know who's on deck and who's in the hole. And we'll try and keep this going as evenly and as smoothly as possible. And I guess we can start. So our first deputant is Shirley Hackett. Welcome, Shirley. And is Shirley here someplace? Oh, okay, we got.
Good morning. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak regarding the ORV Task Force road access to the trails in the city of Kawartha Lakes. I identify as a homeowner, and I live by the Victoria Rail Trail in Fenland Falls. I enjoy the multi-use trail. My comments include this. The history of transportation in Canada includes the horse and buggy, motorized vehicles, trains, bicycles, and walking. Roads were developed with the intended use of motorized and non-motorized vehicles. Sidewalks were established for pedestrians. All licensed and insured vehicles should have access to roads and trails. The Victoria Rail Trail was established for train transportation initially, and houses and cottages were built along roads and trails for the convenience of transportation along these routes. As a person that enjoys the multi-use of roads and trails, I ask you to think about what is going to be next in restrictions. Should we restrict the large trucks from city streets? They are noisy and they pollute. Should we restrict children's bicycles from sidewalks? They could knock elderly people over. Should we restrict dogs from all the trails? They poop. And many of these walkers are not scooping. Should we restrict RVs and work trailers from any parking anywhere in the city? They take up valuable space. Should we restrict all the boats on the lakes? They're noisy and they pollute too. Should we restrict the homeowners from planting and parking and encroaching on public lands? All of these things are a slippery slope and encourage you to consider. Support access to the trails in the city of Kawartha Lakes to support tourism, to support our local economy, and to support recreation of all types for all citizens. So please, when you do this, do it responsibly, respectfully, and with proper enforcement. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Shirley, for your comments. Just hang on a minute. Can I have a motion to receive Shirley's deputation? Moved by Tracy, seconded by Carolyn. Do we have any questions for Shirley? Seeing none, all those in favor of the receive, please signify. And that motion's carried. Thank you. Okay. Next we have.
Councillor Gunn?
Yes.
We have 2 people waiting in the waiting room. May I admit them?
Yes, please. Just let me know when we're there.
Will do. Just have to make sure.
So in the meantime, I'll give a batting order coming up. Next, we'll have Jamie Morris, followed by Glenda Morris on and Jim Armstrong in the hole.
Good morning, John. I've renamed you. You are our 19th speaker today. If in the meantime you could keep your camera turned off and keep yourself on mute, please. And good morning, Chuck. I have renamed you. You are our 26th speaker today. If in the meantime you could keep your camera turned off and keep yourself muted, please. Thank you, Councillor Dunn. That's everyone.
Okay, Jamie, you're up.
Great, thanks for the opportunity to address the task force. I'm here as a Lindsay resident who has been following your work closely. I read your terms of reference. I've read what is posted on the Jump In Kawartha Lakes Off-Road Vehicle Task Force page. I've watched the meetings recorded on YouTube. What I'd like to share with you are 3 concerns I have about the process, about how you've arrived at your recommendations. First, the task you set for yourself is not the task set out for you in your terms of reference. On the Jump In page, you state, the goal is to provide council with recommendations that will help expand and enhance ORV use across the municipality. If you go back to your task force terms of reference, you'll see there's nothing in there about expanding and enhancing the use of ORVs. What is in the terms of reference is provide advice and recommendations to council on the use of ORVs on municipal roads. The big question is, should ORVs be allowed on roads? From the outset, your assumption has been that this is a settled matter, that it is okay to have off-road vehicles on roads. Councillor Dunn, you've been quoted as saying, no change regarding ORVs and municipal roads is not an option. In fact, it is an option. It is absolutely within your power to recommend that the existing bylaw remain in place and ORVs not be allowed on any city roads south of Road 8. My second concern is that you have not listened to and fairly considered a variety of voices before you came up with your recommendations. The terms of reference ask the councillors appointing 4 citizens to the task force to, quotations, select a broad range of public interests to ensure rounded and fulsome discussion, which I take to mean ensure a variety of points of view. Of the 4 citizens you brought onto the task force, one was the current Kawartha ATV Association president, a second was the past president of the Kawartha ATV Association, and a third was an ATV enthusiast who worked with the past president to open up roads in Trent Lakes to ATVs. On March 4th, I watched the set of task force recommendations being listed and voted on. What I saw were 5 individuals voting on the recommendations, 3 of whom were the current president of CATVA, the past president of the Kawartha ATV Association, and the ATV enthusiast who worked with the past president to open up roads in Trent Lakes to ATVs. Not much range of public interest there. And no surprise, all were strongly in favor of off-road vehicles on the roads. One of the activities you were assigned as a task force was to facilitate public and stakeholder consultation through regular meetings, surveys, and/or public meetings. You're having a public meeting now and hearing a variety of viewpoints, but this is after you've already come up with a set of recommendations. My final concern is that there's not much evidence the task force has done the research on which the Jump In page said recommendations to council would be based. It's hard to know how much of that has gone on. Much of your activity has happened behind closed doors in what you've termed working meetings. So let me ask, have you talked to and heard back from the health unit? My understanding is that in 2009, 2011, 2013, our health unit had concerns for the safety of ORV drivers and passengers, as well as other road users. Has something happened to change that? A current assessment of health risks from the health unit is essential. Have you received written comments on the proposed routes through Lindsay from Kawartha Lakes Police Services? I'd note that the February 5th, 2013 Special Council report on the ATV routes through Lindsay proposed at that time included comments from then Chief Haggerty. Have you read the detailed explanation in that special council report on why the ATV route through Lindsay proposed at that time was not recommended? Have you talked to representatives from municipalities that have decided not to allow ORVs onto roads to find out their reasoning? Have you talked to downtown Lindsay business owners to find out whether they think ORV access to the downtown will have the economic benefit you seem to feel it will have? Have you checked what ATV and side-by-side manufacturers have to say about driving their vehicles on roads? Have you researched what the Recreational Off-Highway Vehicle Association has to say? Or
Jamie, your
the
5 minutes are
ORV
just up.
safety-
Would you?
Have you calculated the potential costs of allowing ORVs onto the roads? Costs in terms of enforcement and road maintenance. If you haven't done all of this, I'd urge you to take extra time to do so and to give much more thought to your recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Can I have a motion to receive Mr. Morris's submission? Moved by Steve Lane, seconded by Carolyn. Do we have any questions for Mr. Morris? Hearing none, all those in favor of the receipt? Oh, hold on just a second. Councillor Richardson.
Hi, thank you, Jamie, for your comments this morning. Taking everything into the scope of what you're saying, but I want to reassure you that we have reached out to the health unit, had a meeting yesterday, and the chair brought it up. Presently, they are working on it. 80% of their employment right now is working on the vaccination. So that report will be coming and we will be sharing it. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All those in favor?
Hello?
Okay, that motion's carried. Okay, next up we have Glenda Morris, followed by Jim Armstrong, and followed by Mr. Bill Stepler after that. Glenda, you're up.
Great. And thank you for
Thanks,
this opportunity.
Glenda.
Oh, sorry. Oh my goodness. Hey, can you? I was so prepared and then something just happened. There we go. Okay. Thank you for this opportunity to contribute to the work of the task force. I welcome the opportunity, although I'm not sure what I have to say will be welcome. Notification I received by email March 12th from Jump In states the task force has already, quote, pulled together recommendations to council with a focus to review and help identify opportunities to support safe use of off-road vehicles on municipal roads. And with that, the implied message is that anyone opposed to ORVs on municipal roads is a dissenting voice. And I face the challenge of convincing the task force to change its position. It's not quite the same thing as providing input to you to inform your decision. Welcome or not, I point out some cold hard facts that have to be taken into account in any discussion of expanded use of ORVs. First, it's a cold hard fact. We already have too much greenhouse gas in our atmosphere. It's a fact, and the consequences are profound. We have a responsibility as global citizens, as Canadians, as residents of this community to cut back on greenhouse gases, not to encourage the production of more. Now, locally, City of Kawartha Lakes has a healthy environment plan, and it commits us here in CKL to, quote, understanding the risks that climate change poses locally, and most importantly, take action. Council endorsed the Healthy Environment Plan in 2019. It was the product of 2 years in development, shaped through conversations with over 2,600 people, 40 organizations, institutions, and community groups. And how seriously Council took its commitment is indicated in this statement. A healthy environment is one of Council's 3 main goals in the municipality's corporate strategic plan. And that plan states, quote, efforts are needed for the city to align with the federal and provincial government's targets, which translate to a 20% reduction below 2015 levels by 2030. It sets as a goal cultivating sustainable, low carbon transportation, encouraging walking, bicycling, use of transit, and electric vehicles. So it's the responsibility of a task force reporting to council to take environmental health very seriously and, consistent with the city's priorities, to establish environmental health as the first priority in arriving at its recommendations. In recommendations to this council, the task force should not have as its goal expanding recreational use of greenhouse gas emitting ORVs in the municipality. And this option most definitely should not have been given priority ahead of the development of the city's active transportation plan and ahead of providing bicycle lanes. For practical purposes, there are none in the city, and children shouldn't be cycling on the sidewalks because I'm one of those elderly people that gets knocked over. It's contradictory to the city's strategic goals and its healthy environment plan. Recommendations not to use ORVs may be unpopular, and it will seem unfortunate for people who have invested substantial sums of money in ORVs and side-by-sides and all the associated expenses. It's understandable. But City of Kawartha Lakes made its commitment in 2019, and implications for the task force is clear. In the effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to comply with the Healthy Environment Plan and the Corporate Strategic Plan, Council cannot promote increased use of ORVs. It cannot make changes in existing bylaws to permit ORV access to municipal roads. I hope that you will change your decision regarding ORV access to roads, but not because you feel badgered or scolded, but that you will genuinely understand the rationale for limiting pollution and appreciate the consequences, and that you will appreciate the opportunities that come with a commitment to giving priority to modes of transportation that are environmentally benign. Taking action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions might mean less of some activities, but it can mean more of others. More residents and visitors on foot and on bicycles, enjoying nature on trails and patronizing local businesses on streets that are made safe and welcoming for them. The possibilities are numerous. They're exciting, they're good for local business and the local economy. So I recognize that the task force is earnest and hope that they will make productive use of the input contributed by residents today. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenda. Can I have a motion to receive Ms. Morris's submission? Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Steve Lang. Do we have any questions of Ms. Morris?
Hello, can I speak, please?
Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that motion's carried. Thank you. Okay, next up we have Jim Armstrong, followed by Bill Steffler, followed by Kathleen Cooper.
Hello, sorry.
Hello.
As far as answers to questions from the lady that just spoke, are people on here allowed to answer questions, or is it just the council? Sorry.
Just council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. When this task force was announced, you were quoted, Councillor Dunn, as saying, with recent changes in legislation and an increase of vehicles in the area, the task force will be critical in helping guide Kawartha Lakes in making safe and responsible decisions around future off-road vehicle use. I think the task force is right to be focusing on the goal of safe and responsible decisions. This is a very serious business that you're addressing, which will likely result in life and death consequences for some people. Just this week, the OPP report for collisions and fatalities in 2020 reported that last year's 23 off-road vehicle fatalities marked the highest number of deaths in 14 years. 8 of those who died were not wearing a helmet. 4 of the riders were wearing a helmet, but with the chin strap unfastened. Alcohol or drugs was a factor in approximately 1/3 of the deaths. The health and safety implications of opening up almost all the roads of Kawartha Lakes to ATVs present significant challenges. The Provincial Bill 107 has thrust municipalities into a short period of time to place any limits on access, or there will be no limits at all. Reports will be coming to the task force from public health, and I expect from the police soon. Many questions come to mind that will need to be part of task force discussions. What do the OPP and Lindsay Police recommend? How are they preparing for enforcement? What do public health recommend? What preventive action can be taken to reduce the likelihood of adverse health concerns? What signage should the city be putting in place to direct people? What will help with so many drivers unfamiliar with the area coming in? What public education activities would help prepare awareness for the changes? How in particular can young age groups be reached? What is different driving on roads versus trails? Who will take the lead in dealing with all the safety issues? I expect many people in the community will readily assist if there is good leadership about developing safe practices. What have been the experiences elsewhere when similar changes have been introduced? These are just a few of the questions to address. Hasty decisions about implementation will just add to the risks of more accidents and injuries. How will the experience be documented and analyzed to identify ways over the coming year to make improvements or reduce the risks and problems? A major concern has to be the recommendations drafted by the task force for routes through Lindsay to connect the trails. It is 10 kilometers between the trail entrance on Logie Street at the south end and Thunderbridge Road at the north end. The proposed route includes some of the busiest streets, such as Lindsay and Angeline. The risk comes not just from what ATV riders may do or not do on the roads, but also other vehicle drivers and pedestrians. In conclusion, safe and responsible decisions about how to regulate ATV access to roads in the city must include serious attention to public education and other preventive measures to reduce the likelihood of adverse consequences. There's little time to alert the public and build awareness for proper introduction of the changes. I want to thank you for this opportunity to contribute to the task force's work.
Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong. Can I have a motion to receive Mr. Armstrong's deputation? Moved by Kathleen Seymour Fagan, seconded by Carolyn Richards. Do any of the task force members have any questions for Mr. Armstrong? Kathleen?
Hi, Mr. Armstrong. Thank you for this. That's very well thought out, and it's not biased in either way. And I think that your points are very important. And we are getting reports from both of the police divisions. I'm wondering if the information that you saw from the OPP said how many of those accidents were on private property?
I don't have the details. I tried to get more details from OPP, but they just said, well, you can put in a Freedom of Information request.
Okay, so I am on the OPP board, and the majority of them are on private property. And that's one of the reasons why we are looking at this, because there will be enforcement. We can't enforce when they're on the roads. We can't at this point enforce on private property. And, you know, a lot of things happen on private property, like children and no helmets and things that shouldn't be happening. And that's where the cause of death is. And it has been mainly on private property. So I just want to say thanks again for bringing all of this up.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have anything further? All those in favor of the motion to receive? And that motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next up we have Bill Steffler, followed by Kathleen Cooper, followed by Peter Petrosoniak. Mr. Steffler, you're up.
Okay, thank you. In promoting ORV interests, the task force has failed to discuss the area of costs. Trail maintenance. It's to be noted as advertised by the task force that ORV groups have contributed significant amounts to trail maintenance. However, there are questions that haven't been answered. Motorized trails require more maintenance than non-motorized. Did the ORV funds cover all of the rail trail expenses? If not, what were the city's expenses? What are the city's expected expenses for more ORV traffic and enforcement? Lack of this information is especially disconcerting in light of the task force objective of putting spin on their recommendations. The city budgets $100,000 per year for trails. There was no breakdown given. Since most of the rail trail is motorized, I expect in most years the majority of those funds would be for motorized sections. They get the most wear and tear. Healthcare costs. These costs for motorized use have been documented and are significant. The taxpayer foots the bill. In the USA, for example, the healthcare costs associated with ATVing alone have been estimated to be $3.24 billion annually by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That's a 2007 study. In Canada, the combined healthcare burden of ATVing and snowmobiling in 2004 was calculated to be $381 million. Over the years, health units have regularly advised against on-road ORV use because of the injury rate. That all adds up to more costs for the taxpayer. An Ontario study showed that between 2013 and 2017, Approximately 50% of ATV accidents and deaths occurred on roads. Road maintenance. The task force has also failed to provide any discussion or estimate of increased road maintenance costs. Shoulders will have to be constantly monitored and repaired, which leads to liability risk. Joint and several liability is a major potential cost for the city. If the city is found even marginally liable and other defendants can't cover the settlement awarded, then the city has to cover the balance, potentially millions of dollars in costs. Recently, Northumberland County closed some snowmobile trails because of this risk. The city has to ensure the taxpayer is protected. Frank Cowan Company, which specializes in municipal risk management advice and insurance, recently circulated a notice entitled Risk Management Considerations for Off-Road Vehicles on Municipal Roads. The notice specified that the increased municipal liability needs to be considered. The task force has again failed to deal with this risk other than to briefly state that ORV drivers must carry insurance. So what happens when a road shoulder gives way and there are serious disability injuries? CO2 removal from the atmosphere. Here's a NASA report, October 2019. Of the CO2 emissions that occurred over the last 300 years, half have occurred since 1980. That's us. CO2 emissions remain in the atmosphere for 300 years to 1,000 years. CO2 emissions accumulate in the atmosphere, and we have increased exponentially the rate at which we dump this garbage into our home. Along with drastically reducing emissions, removal of CO2 from the atmosphere will be necessary. That will require buildings, equipment, wages, and storage. There is no end product, so I expect the taxpayer will foot the bill. This will cost billions of dollars. Until there is a very, very large reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from ORVs, the associated CO2 removal costs are one more very good reason not to promote dumping more garbage into the atmosphere. Human lives. World Health Organization key facts. The direct damage cost to health is estimated to be between $2 billion US and $4 billion US by the year 2030. Between 2030 and 2050, climate change is expected to cause approximately 250,000 additional deaths per year. Importantly, heat waves have a greater impact on mortality or morbidity than the reported number of deaths or cases due to classical heat illness, because heat waves also induce the onset of other diseases, for example, cardiovascular diseases, respiratory diseases, and diabetes. Thus, heat waves are a critical public health problem. In closing,
start to wind up, Mr.
Yes, I'll be done in about 10 seconds. In closing, I'll leave this excerpt from a peer review of ORV propaganda. The motorized recreation industry and user groups seek maximum access to the public domain with minimal restrictions on their activities. That industry has often tried to use economic analysis to demonstrate the social rationality of leaving motorized recreation largely unregulated. These analyses, however, are based on a peculiar economic alchemy that seeks to transform private interests and public costs into public benefits.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seffer. Can I have a motion to receive this report? Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Carolyn Richards. Do we have any questions for Mr. Steffler? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Steffler.
Thank you very much for receiving my deputation.
Okay. Next, we have Kathleen Cooper, followed by Peter Petrosoniak, followed by Mark Stewart.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I would like to first echo or support comments made by Mr. Morris and Mr. Steffler about the process so far used by this task force, but mainly I want to speak from my own experience riding horses on roads both south and north of Road 8 in the city of Kawartha Lakes for many years, and interactions with people on off-road vehicles. For the most part, these have been very positive in terms of people on off-road vehicles slowing down, recognizing that a horse needs to be respected and needs to be treated according to what the Highway Traffic Act says, which is basically that a horse has the right of way because of the safety of both the horse and the rider. I'll tell you about one situation, though, of several, but one in particular where a friend of mine, we were riding on the Bexley-Laxton line, and there was an ATV coming very, very fast. I'm sure faster than the speed limit that's noted of 50 kilometers an hour on that road. We waved to him just to try to get him to slow down. He waved back at us to tell us to get the hell out of his way. He finally did slow down. The horses were very agitated. Our lives were in danger. I'm quite sure of that. He turned it. It was an incredibly angry confrontation. He told us we shouldn't be on the road. He was very belligerent and arrogant. He said he had a license. He said we shouldn't be on the road. I had hastened to say this is a very unusual circumstance, but it's the kind of entitlement that I think will expand if the manner in which your recommendations go forward are as so far one-sided as they appear to be. You refer to the HTA Reg 31603 is what these people who drive these vehicles have to adhere to. That is such, speaking in code, I mean, that is the Highway Traffic Act regulation, which first and foremost says that off-road vehicles are not allowed on the roads unless there's a local bylaw. So now that we are contemplating expanding the local bylaw here, I think what's crucial is that you include not just the reference to regulation speaking in code that people don't necessarily know what it is, that you need to recognize that if you go ahead with this kind of expansion, you need to do what I believe a couple of speakers already mentioned, Mr. Armstrong. You have to have an accompanying educational program that explains not only the HTA Reg 316, but the Highway Traffic Act itself, which says that horses, and I'm not just talking about someone like me, but the Amish and Mennonite communities who have horse-drawn carriages in many parts of Kawartha Lakes, who will also be affected by this change in terms of whether we expand use of off-road vehicles on the roads, and the need to ensure that sense of entitlement in terms of the experience that I had does not expand, but in fact is corrected by good education, by good signage, so that there is recognition of the danger that's created when you don't recognize the nature of a horse. 50 years ago, people would have automatically known how unsafe it would be to approach a horse the way some drivers, much less off-road vehicles, do. But that knowledge is gone, and it needs to be brought back. I mean, I'm concerned about the effect of on hikers and walkers as well, but I want to speak specifically to that safety concern. It's the same as when you're riding a canoe on the waterways. A canoe is given the right of way, and for the same reason, for safety, the safety of the occupant of the canoe. It's the same thing for a horse. So if this goes ahead, I think you can benefit enormously from the kinds of educational and signage activity that exists for off-road vehicles in other circumstances. The Ganaraska Forest, for example, has excellent signage and educational materials that go out for multi-use in the Western Forest, and it works very well. There's good understanding among off-road vehicle drivers that you slow down, you pull over, you take direction from the rider. The horse has the right of way for that safety reason. So I don't see in your recommendations that you've understood or recognized the need for educational work to accompany any expansion in this bylaw. And you have an opportunity not only to address, if you go ahead with this expansion south of Road 8, but to have a good educational materials and outreach for the entire city of Kawartha Lakes. Because if this kind of off-road vehicle use expands, then my life is in danger when I'm on the road. If this kind of entitlement is expanded by task force recommendations that appear so far to only take into account the interests of this one stakeholder.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Those are my comments, and I'm happy to put them in writing if that is easier. And also to stay engaged in providing more information about the kind of educational materials and activity that needs to accompany any expansion in this bylaw. Thank you very much.
And I have a motion to receive the deputation, moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Seymour Fagan. Do we have any questions? Go ahead, Tracy. Are you okay? I'm sorry. All right. Thank you very much, Kathleen. I really appreciate your remarks. I've made the walk, and I've talked to equestrians on the trail. They echoed some of what you said. They found the ATVers very good. Their biggest complaint was cyclists. So bad experiences are bad experiences, and I feel, I'm sorry for that. I don't think it reflects the majority of the people that ride ATVs, and I think you've indicated that too. Education is always the key, and a lot of that's going to be coming forward under the Master Trail Plan. If nothing else, what this has exposed to us is that although our focus was south of County Road 8, a lot of issues in the areas where it's already approved have come to our notice, and when they do the Master Trail Plan, a lot of that's going to be forwarded to them for the Master Trail Plan. Our focus was south of County Road 8 because everything north of County or City Road 8 now, everything north of City Road 8 was already approved. So our focus has been south, but your comments are well expressed and well taken, and I thank you very much.
I had similar experiences south of Road 8. I just mentioned the other one because it was worse.
Carolyn?
Thank you.
Yeah, hold on. I think Carolyn's she has her hand up there.
Yeah, Kathleen, with your permission, I'd like to reach out to you at a later date to talk to you more about how input from you regarding educating riders with regard to horses, if that's okay.
That'd be great. I'd love that.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of receiving this deputation? And that motion's carried. Thank you, Kathleen. Okay, next up we have Peter Petrosoniak, followed by Mark Stewart, followed by Heather Staubel. Dr. Petrosoniak, are you there somewhere?
Yeah, so thanks very much. It's a pleasure to be here again. And I've spoken to some of the councillors before. I've submitted the report, so I think you've seen it. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and Green Trails Alliance. So for me, as you've seen in the reports, in the data that I've given you, the biggest concern here is public health and safety. And I've written that Public Health Ontario had noted that the ATV ER visits and hospitalizations were the fifth highest of all health units in HKPR than anywhere else, and the only ones that were higher where there was less restricted ATV use on roads. So that's a problem. The Ontario Road Safety Report, which comes out every few years, comes out every year in preliminary form, but the last full 2017 showed that about half of injuries and deaths from ATVs are on roads. So I dispute what Councillor Seymour Fagan just said about most of the injuries and deaths being being off roads. That is not the case. That may have been for a short period of time. If you read the Ontario Safety Report, the Ontario Road Safety Report, it also shows that there are times when there's more injuries off-road, but then there are other years that it's more on-road. And so it all evens out over a 5-year period. It's about 50%. The Canadian Institute for Health Information noted the number of hospitalizations due to ATV injuries has been climbing. That's a concern. The American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons has been alarmed by the number of ATV injuries and deaths on paved roads. So what do we have? the healthcare, the Halliburton Kawartha Pine Ridge Health Unit in a number of years, 2007, 9, 11, and I believe 12 or 13, have given opinions when asked by council to not allow ATVs on roads because of these concerns. And these were particular reports for the city of Kawartha Lakes. And I'm glad that Councillor Emsley and Board of Health have asked for a report, and that will probably take a while because obviously the pandemic is the bigger concern right now for the health unit. The Peterborough Public Health Unit in 2019 also wrote a report discouraging ATV use in Peterborough County, and particularly for Cavan Monaghan. And Cavan Monaghan has itself adopted a bylaw to disallow road use. So we should be looking at that. Health practitioners, regulators in the states have also been recommending no road use. And in fact, some places, for instance, West Virginia has looked at, they pretty well have unrestricted or had unrestricted road use. They're looking at restricting ATVs off roads. Minnesota had the same thing where ATV fatalities on roads was 70%, which flies in the face of this idea that most ATV injuries and deaths are not on roads. So what's the industry position? Well, the Consumer Products and Safety Commission says definitely ATVs should not be driven on paved roads. The Specialty Vehicle Institute of America, which represents manufacturers, says that ATVs are not designed or manufactured or intended for use in public roads on highways. And they recommend that, that they be prohibited from road use. They're incompatible because of the engineering of ATVs. They have a higher center of gravity. Many don't have a differential in the back axle, so it'll tend to slip on a paved road. They're made for off-road use, and they don't have safety equipment such as are on motorized vehicles on roads, like safety belts, airbags, roll bars. Now some do, but most don't. As someone mentioned, the insurance industry discusses the potential liabilities, Frank Cowan Insurance. I think that was mentioned by a previous deputant. So we have to consider that cost of injury, death, increased liability to the city, and how will that and how much that will be will offset any concern for any increase in business gains. So I'm glad that you've referred this to Health Unit, and I look forward to seeing what their report is and what your report is. And the other thing is, I just ask you to open your meetings, as your terms of reference says. Your meetings should be open; they should not be closed, and the notes from any closed meetings be opened up. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you, Doctor. Can I have a motion to receive this report? Moved by Kathleen Seymour Fagan, seconded by Tracy Richardson. Do we have any questions? Kathleen? You're on mute, Kathleen.
Thank you, Dr. Petrosoniak.
Sorry, did you want me for something? Oh no, I'm sorry, wrong Kathleen. Whoops.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Petrosoniak. I very much respect your opinion on these things and your research. You know, you're right, there have been injuries with ATVs, there have been injuries with motorcycles, and injuries with many things, including a friend of mine lost her son on an ATV on a private property. He was a child and didn't have a helmet on and should not have been on that. And that's a whole education piece there. And that's part of the problem. And I actually was on a task force working with sick kids. So I am aware of the stuff that has gone on and continues to go on with these situations. The one thing that I do question is the OPP in this area, our accidents have been on private property. So it hasn't been on the roads. That's for this specific area. The other areas I don't know. So I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah, and you know, I just want to say thank you, because I think it's important that, again, we see both sides of the story.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the task force? All those in favor of receiving the documents? And that motion is carried. Okay, next we have Mark Stewart, followed by Heather Stauble, and followed by Ross Petty.
Thank
Mark,
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a lifetime resident of the Lindsay area, and I'm speaking this morning as a supporter of the multi-use trail systems and the road corridors being accessible to ATVs. I'd like to share some of my background with you, which I feel could support an unbiased testimony to my remarks. I'm an active cyclist who has cycled several times on the rail trail from Omemee to Halliburton, as well as other systems such as the Sequin trails from Perry Sound to Gravenhurst. I'm an active road cyclist. In the past, I've been a member of the local cyclist club. I've participated in many ride charities. I've cycled from Fort Erie to home. In normal times, I typically snowmobile about 5,000 kilometers per year in Ontario, Quebec, and New Brunswick. My wife and I ATV and side by side in Ontario and Quebec. And hopefully this year, we're looking forward to Newfoundland. I'm fortunate enough to maintain a groomed 6-kilometer trail system on my property for ATV use, as well as walking and cross-country skiing, which I try to attain daily. And finally, I round out my credentials to some of the protesters who may even consider me a criminal. I use my vehicle illegally, my side-by-side, to go across the creek or around the creek and feed the wildlife and the deer on the other side. So there you have it. I cycle, I trek, I cross-country ski, I ATV, I snowmobile. Plus, I know about trail systems, and I've experienced these activities in Ontario, as well as other provinces in Quebec. And my purpose for letting you know all this is that I engage and enjoy all the activities which utilize trail systems, other than the horses. I hope it also gives me some credibility to state that multi-trail systems work. And access to road corridors are necessary for the trail continuity, and the harmony between these activities is quite possible and safe, subject to the necessary guidelines, which other speakers have offered, and the willingness for people to be responsible. Some people will be proponents of a multi-use trail system, to think positively about how it can work in harmony to safely accommodate as many people with different interests as possible. I'm one of those people. Some others may be perceived as protesters, those who seek excuses for others to be deprived of what they consider to be sacred as the only activity that they may engage in. Years ago, I sat on the steering committee for the multi-trail use system, and it baffled me when I heard some arguments such as concerns with noise, yet they had no problem with their neighbor cutting their lawn on a Sunday morning. I've been reading articles in the paper, and I caution that there has to be caution to the wind, that some of these are what I consider twisted propaganda, and using stats that are supportive of their own cause. There was a time when you couldn't enter a bank with a mask on, and now you can't get into one without one. So for whatever reasons, times are changing, and we continue to be somewhat afraid of it. People are seeking opportunities to engage in recreation more than ever. It's tough to even find bikes and ATVs and snowmobiles on the shelves, not only because of the limited production due to COVID, but because people want them, and they want a place to use them. And one of those places is here in the city of Kawartha Lakes. Contrary to what was published in a magazine at one time, Lindsay is the place not to go. We need to look at other cities like Corner Brook in Newfoundland, 40,000 population, where they encourage people to come, enjoy, and spend their money in by allowing ATV access through their city. Instead, in Lindsay, we have a trail system at each end of town where tourists are abruptly reminded not to enter town, being denied access to food, fuel, hardware stores, pharmacies, medical facilities, and other essential services and retail. I'm concerned that how that portrays to a city who is supposed to profess to be tourist oriented, and these tourists are met with these obstacles at the edge of our town. It's time to change and recognize the needs and desires of as many recreational activities as possible. I ask that we proceed as a minimum to give access to the trail systems, and that we provide access directly to or from a residence to those road corridors, and also to the nearest medical facility. The community needs it, the tourists need it. I'm being a previous business owner in the downtown core. The businesses need it. We are a tourist and an outdoor recreational
Mark,
community.
would you start to wrap up, please?
Yep. We just need to change our thinking and imagine how to try to accommodate this. Thanks.
Appreciate your remarks. Thank you. Can I have a motion to receive Mr. Stewart's deputation? Moved by Steve Lane, seconded by Don Mitchell. Do we have any questions for Mr. Stewart? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Now, we're coming on 11 o'clock. And this is for the task force. Does anybody need a break, or can I go another half hour? Go another half hour. Okay. All right. So up next, we have Heather Staubel, followed by Ross Petty. I've got Rob Ferguson on the list, but he hasn't signed in yet. So I'm going to say followed by Shane Kelly. Ms. Staubel, you're up. Heather? Oh, here we go. Thank you. I've got video, but I don't have audio.
Thank you. I'm just checking to make sure you can hear me, first of all.
Okay, got you now.
You can?
Yep.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, thanks so much. Mr. Chair, members of the task force, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Heather Staubel, and I'm a resident. The first couple of points that I want to make in terms of clarification are the city of Kawartha Lakes was not required to review its bylaw. You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm a resident in the city. The MTO clarified that in an email to me, and I'm happy to share that with you. So farmers are already exempt and will continue to be exempt for agricultural purposes. Enforcement and education need to happen regardless. And the primary concern here is with respect to safety. The off-road vehicle manufacturers have said
Going, Heather, we can hear you
have
fine.
said that off-road vehicles are for off-road use only. The off-road vehicles do not meet the definition of a motor vehicle. There are no airbags. They do not get crash tested the same way a car or a truck gets crash tested. And the injury rates, if you look at stats in other jurisdictions, the injury rates on highways, paved roads, gravel roads are 2 to 3 times higher than off-roads. In 2013, Public Works report to council stated that ATVs were a significant source of injury and death for ATV users and often involve collision with another vehicle. And they recommended that council not implement a bylaw that would allow road access to ATVs. The off-road vehicle numbers have increased, and they present an even greater risk today than they did in 2013. A Public Health Ontario report in 2019 found that ATV injury and death rates in our health unit were amongst the highest in Ontario, and in our peer group, they are the highest. The most common cause of death are head and neck injuries, and children and males are the most likely to be injured or die. So if they're so safe, why didn't the province give access to the roads, their provincial roads? The risk assessments need to be done on every single road before recommendations. In terms of insurance, there's 2 aspects. One is the off-road vehicle owners, which cover the off-road vehicle owner. They have to be fully compliant. CATVA members are covered from May 1st to December 1st, but not everybody is going to be a CATVA member. Off-road vehicle insurance is also limited in terms of the type of coverage that might be available. The municipal insurance, which is purchased to cover the municipality, is purchased in order to protect the municipality and the taxpayers who live in there in the event that there is a shortfall or there's an accident on city property, in this case, a road. That coverage is all covered through property tax as an operating budget cost. The task force recommendations are putting lives at risk. Off-road vehicle accidents are more likely than snowmobile accidents.
Heather, do you want to
2
start?
times more likely on road than off-road, and 3 times more likely on paved roads. When you look at other jurisdictions, which is what we need to do if we're considering opening road access to ATVs or ORVs, you need to look at other jurisdictions. Council has to.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to accept Ms. Stauble's presentation? Moved by Don Mitchell, seconded by Kathleen Seymour Fagan. Do we have any questions for Ms. Stauble? All those in favor? Thank you. Motion's carried. Okay, next on the list we have Ross Perry, Shane Kelly, and Ray Deneur. Okay, Ray, you're up.
Oh, I got Ross.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, Ross. Yes, you're up next, please.
Okay. With COVID, I've been watching too much TV. So there's a show I watch called Trek It, which is based out of New Brunswick. They had a show about a town called Bathurst. Bathurst has multiple trails coming into town, but no trails connecting through town. So they have done the same as we've done at the task force. They come up with ATV trails through town that are signed. They have speed limits. So you can connect Trail A from below town to Trail B from above town. You can also go through the town, which is giving you access to gas stations, restaurants, motels. The other show I watch is called Dirt Tracks, which is based out of Minden. And they talk about, there was a show on West Virginia. There's a lot of little coal mining towns that the coal mining is long gone. They connected all these little towns together, which has now turned it into a tourist hub. So again, you can get on these trails, you can access motels, restaurants, gas stations. They've seen an increase in industry up there. And I live on Kenry Park Road, just north of Lindsay. I can drive all the way to Halliburton on the trail, except it's hard to find gas in most places. but I can't go to Bethany. So I would like a trail that would connect me from the south of Bethany up to the north of Kinmount and eventually into Halliburton. Also in New Brunswick, after Bathurst did their renovations, about 4 other towns did the same thing. So now it has become a tourist industry for them. And I play tennis in Fenland Falls, and lots of times I take my ATV and I go from Kenry Park to Fenland Falls on the rail trail. So I can go ATV and tennis, multitasking, doing the same, both activities in one go. And if I want gas, I can go into the gas station in Fenland Falls, and it costs me $4 to fill up my tank. And I wish my car would get from here to Fenland Falls and back for $4. That's about all I've got to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Petty, for your comments. Can I have a motion to accept the deputation? Moved by Steve Lane, seconded by Don Mitchell. Do we have any questions for Mr. Petty? Hearing none, all those in favor? And that motion's carried. Okay, my understanding is Rob Ferguson has not come online yet. Okay, then I'm moving to Shane Kelly, followed by Ray Denner, followed by Rob Jardine. Shane?
Good morning. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I've been a Balsam Lake homeowner from 1996. I also serve as the first vice president for Quartz Atv, and I'm also the trail patrol chief. I just want everyone to know that I have not discussed this with Carolyn Richards or with Steve Lane. I'm speaking from my heart and my head because I love Kawartha Lakes and I love the activities you can do up here. So I'm lucky because my home is north of Road 6, which allows me, the current bylaws allow me to drive from my cottage to the trail. And if I need fuel or want to have lunch, I can go Fenland Falls by trail or by road. And wouldn't it be great if we could do the same thing with Bob Cajun and Lindsay? Allowing road use would also benefit Bethany and Omimi. Unfortunately, the vast majority of ORV users in our area can't access the roads. So this means that they have to trailer their vehicles, their ATVs. So they have to hook up a trailer, they have to load their ATVs, and usually they tow it with a truck. So that doesn't help emissions. And also a lot of times it's seniors that are traveling, and so it's a burden for them to have to go through this. Some of them live only a mile or 2 miles away from the trail, and it would be much more convenient and probably safer for them to be able to go from their house to the trails. This may not sound like a big deal, but for seniors and people with mobility issues, ORVs are the only way to see the beautiful scenery along our trails. As a patrol volunteer, one of the most often questions that riders ask is, why can't we get a route through Lindsay connecting the North Victoria Rail Trail with the South Trail? Many say the roads in Lindsay are too busy for ORVs. However, think about this. In Paris, France, with a population of over 2 million, ATVs are allowed on the roads. They're licensed, insured, and ridden just like motorcycles. Open roads will also allow the Kawartha ATV Trail Patrol to cover more area and educate riders about safety and regulations. Our greatest thing is safety. And if I didn't think it was safe to ride on roads, I wouldn't be speaking to you now. I ride on the roads, I find them safe. The minimum or the maximum speed is 50 kilometers for an ATV on any road. In conclusion, by expanding opening roads to ORVs, you're making it easier for residents, tourists to enjoy the beautiful city of Kawartha Lakes and help local businesses. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Shane, for your comments. Can I have a motion to receive Mr. Kelly's comments, his deputation? Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Jason. Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Kelly? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Thank you, Mr. Kelly, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Next, I have Ray Deneur, followed by Rob Jardine, followed by Mike Ormiston. Okay, Ray, I guess you're up.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Dunn and the committee for, the task force for giving us the opportunity to speak. I'm just going to come out right off the bat to say that I think that that council not adopt ORV use on municipal roads. And I say that actually because I'm concerned about the incompatibility of pedestrians and machinery on the rail trails. I think that the city needs more thought to be put into how you can get around town. I also have snowmobiles. I'm curious what Mark Stewart and I will discuss on our next snowmobile trip on this point, but I think the city missed an opportunity a number of years ago when there were rail lines in the town. Somehow those lines were not allowed to connect the north and the south and the west trails, and that's regrettable. But here we are today. In today's world, what we have is a really interesting piece of trail that runs on Cameron Lake and Fenland Falls that I'm pretty sure you're going to find out that there aren't any of the residents that are going to want any motorized machines on that piece of trail. I realize we're not here to talk about that. What we are here to talk about is how do you get around that trail? And what I see is the city doesn't really have any overall plan for multi-use trails. What I mean is active transportation. And I realize there's an active transportation plan, or at least there's funding for a plan before council. I think that it's inappropriate to move ahead with this kind of decision of allowing ORV usage on municipal trails in the absence of a larger plan. Colburn Street was redeveloped. There's no bike lanes on Colburn Street, and there's also really no pathways for ORVs there either. Having a larger plan, I think, would have helped. If we had a larger plan in the past, we might have a rail that connects the south trails to the north trails at the moment, but we don't. And in this COVID world, what we're seeing is astronomical sales of all kinds of power sport equipment. Just try and buy a Sea-Doo right now, or ATVs are sold out, snowmobiles are sold out, but so are bicycles. And as a cyclist myself, I have noticed that the mountain bike trails that I'm accustomed to riding are now full of people who are walking. And it's, it's annoying. I can't ride my bicycle as fast as I want in those forests because there's so many people. Those same people are moving here to Lindsay, where I live on Canneray Road. There's a whole bunch of new houses being built, and you can be pretty sure those people don't have power sports, but they're going to want to be walking. So what I would like to see is council consider a larger plan for the transportation usage all around town, including ORVs. I have one and I love to use it. But there needs to be a larger plan on considering the transportation of all of those things. And in the absence of that plan, I would say you cannot adopt or take advantage of the change in amendments to legislation to allow ORVs on the municipal roads. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ray, for your presentation. Can I have a motion to accept the deputation? Moved by Steve Lane, seconded by Carolyn Richards. Do we have any questions for Mr. Deneur? Hearing none, all those in favor? And that motion is carried. Okay, next up I have Rob Jardine, followed by Michael Ormiston, followed by Bruce Fraser. Okay, Rob?
Yep, I'm coming.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Dunn, Councillor Richardson, and Councillor Seymour Fagan, and the ORV Task Force and Kawartha Lake staff for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. My name's Rob Jardine, and I'm a proud member of the CATFA organization. I would like to begin by saying the ORV task force is a positive step for Kawartha Lakes. It's important to join the southern area to the northern area via Lindsay and also Bobcaygeon travel route. The economic impact on both these communities is huge for local restaurants, gas stations, lodging, and dealerships. The Fenelon Falls pre-existing route is already proof of that, and there's been no major issues with the Fenelon corridor. Since the pandemic began, Lindsay and Bobcaygeon businesses have suffered financially. In fact, one restaurant, Bobcaygeon, has just announced that it's closing its doors forever. Passing this motion would positively reward those businesses that are open. CATFA is a growing organization, and by council voting against this motion would be a negative step for our communities. The information quoted as coming out of our local health unit in a local magazine are not accurate reflections of our trail system. The majority of accidents are on private land where no safety rules apply. I understand these issues thoroughly, as I've been a volunteer firefighter with Kawartha Lakes Station 22 in Fenelon Falls for 13 years. Our hall sits on the busiest part of the trail, and we have not experienced any major accidents or fatalities. CATFA has been invested a great deal of money and volunteer time into the trail system. The trail patrol is second to none. In addition to being a volunteer firefighter, I sit on the board of the Rossmore Hospital Foundation and have witnessed that CATFA is giving back financially to the Rossmore Hospital. CATFA has also purchased a new side-by-side for Kawartha Lakes Fire Station 20 in Burnt River for emergency access to the trail system. My family are settlers in Kawartha Lakes, coming here in 1890 within the Rosedale area. I was born and raised here. I left to obtain my education and returned to become a business owner with my wife. We've raised 3 children to be stewards of the land within this beautiful community we live in. The opportunity to enjoy a piece of our family heritage on Balsam Lake in the summers. Our family are strong members of CATFA, Kawartha Lakes Snowmobile Club, and we use the trail to walk and cycle. We understand the value of the land and the community. Those choosing to find negativity against the ORV task force need to experience what CATFA really has to offer in Kawartha Lakes before they can make such decisions. I challenge council to get out and experience riding on the ORV before you vote for the project. Tourism is the second biggest industry in Kawartha Lakes, and this sport is not going away anytime soon. I hope you do not vote against this project, but rather encourage it. Improve our local economy within Kawartha Lakes. You will be sending a clear message if you vote against this project. May I reiterate, this is the only a trial, so let CATFA show how successful this project will really be, just like Fenelon Falls has been. Thank you for your time.
Thank you much. Sorry. Thank you, Rob. I lost track of who I was talking to. Thank you for your presentation. Can I have a motion to accept Rob's presentation? Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Steve Lane. Do we have any questions for Mr. Jardine? Hearing none, all those in favor? And that motion is carried. Okay, next up I have Michael Ormiston, Bruce Fraser, and Jerry Campbell. So, Mr. Ormiston.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Dunn and committee members for this opportunity to be able to speak. Just a little background, I'm a landowner. We own and operate a farm in Ops Township. The west boundary of the farm is the Victoria Rail Trail. And I have ATV'd in since 2004. We've ATV'd across Newfoundland, ATV'd in Alaska and in Mexico. It's about time that we get this community together to support the ATV associations and open it up to tourism and travel. And really traveling across Newfoundland really opened my eyes to how communities get together and support the tourism that ATV can bring into their communities. The restaurants were more than happy to see us there. Even we had one restaurant that stayed open later because we were late. He said, "Oh no, we're not in no hurry. You guys come on over when you can get here." But I mean, it was just a great experience. But most of all, like the ATVs, we use it on the farms. They're a workhorse, and it's, but I think a big thing is the education and safety, proper use of ATVs. We have grandchildren that are around them, ride with them. They're always having helmets on, and we try and teach them that, the proper way to use and to ride these vehicles safely. But it's, it's not opening it up to, to have the access to get through Lindsay, to access the whole trail. Right now we can access down to Bethany and as far as Logie Street, but that's it. But it would be nice to be able to access the rest of the trail. We've trailered around and traveled the trail through Fenelon Falls and drove on the city streets there and have had no problem. And I just thank you for your support and time for looking at this again. And I think it's time we need to move forward to bring some more tourism to the city of Kawartha Lakes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ormiston. Can I have a motion to accept Mr. Ormiston's deputation? Moved by Don Mitchell, seconded by Kathleen Seymour Fagan. Do we have any questions for Mr. Ormiston? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? And that motion's carried. Okay, so next I have Bruce Fraser. Just to let the ones that are still waiting, we're at number 16 of 26, so we're just plugging right along. Okay, so coming up, I have Bruce Fraser, Jerry Campbell, and Greg Fitch. Mr. Fraser.
Good morning. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I don't have a lot of facts, figures, or data to share with you other than my personal experience as an outdoor enthusiast. I love the snowmobiling. I had a great season this year. Been out in the trails. I've got to use those last year. Hope to use them again this year. One of the real nice things about the snowmobile trails this year is before we were restricted to our health unit, was the opportunity to actually go from one place to another place to another place, all connected via trails. The ability to connect different sections and towns by trails makes a significant difference when you're out either snowmobiling or ATVing versus stopping at a spot, loading your trailer, unloading your trailer, finding a spot to park your trailer. Having the ability to go from one spot to the next makes a huge difference. There was a lot of talk about responsibility. The accidents that occur, accidents are accidents, but there's a lot of people out there that are not responsible and should be responsible, and they should have the appropriate education and training. Even if I take a look at, this fall, I was in the West Nipissing area. And what was nice about that, my dad, who's in his mid to late 80s, was able to leave his house on his ATV, and we actually got way back on the trails, and we had to go through 2 towns to get there. But the opportunity and the fact that we could just leave his house and go was great. And I think there's a lot of communities like West Nipissing that could be looked at as sort of models to be able to use in this area. The other thing that was talked about, when you take a look at the elderly, there's more and more people that are becoming older, say if you will, and I pick on my dad, his ability to load and unload his ATV is very restricted. He can get on there, he can ride. So you think about as we get older and our ability to be able to go into the area and experience the outdoors is going to be limited if we don't have access from one point to the next point. There was a lot of talk about safety. Again, the safety and the concerns, yes, like anything else, you have car drivers that are, you hear about road rage. You have people that don't follow the rules. You have racing. You get that with any motorized vehicle. And the key is that it becomes the responsibility of the vehicle owner. The education and training helps, but it's up to each of us to be able to follow the rules. And if you're following the rules and rules are established, then you follow them. I would also expect that the ORV task force has already looked at a number of issues. So to recite things back to you, I think would be not worthwhile doing. And I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak and share my experiences. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fraser, for your comments. Can I have a motion to accept Mr. Fraser's comments or his deputation? Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Jason Ramsey. Do we have any questions for Mr. Fraser? All those in favor of the motion? And that motion's carried. Brianna, were you trying to get my attention?
Hi there. Yes, I had someone who lost connection. I've just readmitted them.
So you need some time to hook them up?
Nope, they're back in. I just
Back in. Okay, so we're down for the last 10. While I'm talking, is everybody still good to keep going? Okay, no breaks. All right, up next I have Jerry Campbell, followed by Greg Fitch, followed by John Speer. Jerry, you're up.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jerry Campbell, and I have a full-time residence in the city of Kawartha Lakes. My husband and I had 2 ATVs last year, and we traded them in for a side-by-side. And we tried to go to Fenland Falls for lunch with some friends, and we couldn't get through the gates because they were too narrow. So we had to go along the road, North Line, and then 121. We had to go through the center of Fenland, which I don't know. I don't think it's that great for everyone. We would prefer to use the rail trail. We've really enjoyed using our side-by-side along all the rail trail around the area. And we just like the gates widened so we can go into Fenland and along the rail trail. You know, we're very safety oriented. We have our helmets, our licenses, and our insurance and all that. So yeah, basically that's all I wanted to let you know.
Thank you, Jerry. A lot of that's going to be discussed during the trail master plan. But let me get a motion first to receive your deputation, and then I'm going to ask maybe Carolyn might want to jump in. Moved by Don Mitchell, seconded by Steve Lane. Carolyn, do you have any comments for Ms. Campbell?
Sure. The reason, Ms. Campbell, that we as a club actually have supported that decision as far as keeping them off that section of trail is because that's where the higher volume of pedestrian traffic is. And so because of the size of some of the side-by-sides, we actually prefer to keep them on the road in that section just for to reduce the conflict on the trail as far as the cyclists and the walkers and the off-road vehicles. So it's a conscious choice as a club that we've made to support that. And I believe we will continue to support that to keep them off of that section. And that's why we got permission for the road use from North Line Road into Fenland Falls.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. There's a motion on the floor. All those in favor? Steve, there we go. I'm good. Thank you. That motion's carried. Okay, next I have Greg Fitch, John Speer, and Arthur Hornibrook.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for let me join the meeting here this morning. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my son, several local enthusiasts, four-wheelers, ATVs, snowmobilers, a group of us that go out on a regular basis. My concerns are on a couple different subjects. I'm not going to really do a spew. I'm kind of looking for a couple of answers if that's possible. I know that Fenland Falls, different communities have access to their town with ATVs. A lot of them are policed by the OPP, and I'm just curious on number one, if the city of Kawartha Lakes is going to be policed on the streets by the OPP or the town police, if someone can answer me that. And I'm also looking for different people about emissions. There's a lot of things that I've heard so far this morning on emissions. It is not 1980 anymore. A lot of manufacturers did produce two-stroke engines back in the 70s and 80s, which were high pollution, two-stroke. They did spit a lot of their unburnt fuel out the exhaust, which caused incredible smoke and pollution. Today's world is totally different for the people that are negative about the emissions. Emissions in us, almost 85 to 90% of ATVs are four-stroke now. Very few manufacturers make two-stroke. They do for more racing, whatnot. Fuel injection has been a big increase in the last 10 years. Fuel injection has been around a lot longer than people think it has, but the way they're designing it now with direct fuel injection, direct cylinder fuel injection, you're talking 80 to 90% less emissions than it was 10 years ago. The emissions in a ATV are so minimal compared to what your average vehicle going down the road is. It's incredible. As far as noise pollution goes in the city of Kawartha Lakes, a lot of residents are going to be concerned about noise pollution. Most, again, four-strokes with a stock exhaust are quieter than most cars. If anyone here on the council or anyone listening has ever heard, for instance, a Harley Davidson motorcycle ripping up your road at 6 a.m. or 10 o'clock at night, it is incredibly loud. They are illegal. They are legal to ride on the street. They are legal to ride on the road, but yet the noise pollution is incredible compared to what a four-stroke, properly tuned stock ATV is going to be. I do have another concern on if this is passed and ATVs are allowed on the streets of City of Kawartha Lakes, will we require safety precautions on it? A lot of people are talking about airbags, seatbelts. That's not going to be possible with a ATV. I'm talking more in the way of single lights. If we're going to need to inquire on single lights, which is a matter of, you can get them on Amazon for 25 bucks. You wire it in, you have your little switch. You could turn left, you could turn right, same as an automobile. And mirrors. Most ATVs, to my knowledge, I know there's gentlemen on here that would know more about this. Most manufacturers don't put mirrors on their ATVs. That's another matter of, let's thank God for Amazon. You can get them for 20 bucks. Mount them on yourself. You have mirrors. As far as I'm concerned, you have mirrors and single lights indicating what direction you're going in the city of Kawartha Lakes. Headlights are obviously on them now, tail lights, brake lights. But are we going to require that if you're going to drive it on the city of Kawartha Lakes on the streets? That's pretty much my spew for the day. I'm sorry I had a long spew of going, but now that I've listened to the last hour of things, I kind of want to answer some questions for people that might be looking for the answers to those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Just give me a second. I'll get a motion to receive your deputation, and then we'll see what we can do. Can I have a motion to accept the deputation? Moved by Steve Lane, seconded by Don Mitchell. Well, one question I can answer for you right off the bat. Where the OPP are policing, they will continue to police, and where the City of Kawartha Lakes Police Service is policing, they will continue to police. There is no move on council to change who polices where. And there's no talk that I'm aware of by councillors to bring that topic up. So what's here is here, and I don't anticipate any changes as far as who's doing the policing. The other stuff, does anybody here want to comment on that? Go ahead, Jason.
So in regards to your questions, just let me know if you can hear me. I'm using a different computer. Okay. In regards to your questions for the equipment, most of those answers can be found in the regulations set forth in the Highway Traffic Act. They are required to have lights. There is no requirement for automated signals on them. So you are required, if you don't have automated signals, which I know some of the larger side-by-sides do, then you would be required to use standard hand signals as set forth in the driver's handbook.
Similar to snowmobiling, which we do.
Exactly. And like you would in, say, a car, if you were driving your car and your tail lights broke, you would be required by the HTA to provide a hand signal to indicate the signal your intent. So all those things are already listed out. They are required to have lights front and rear, as I said. And as you know, most if not all off-road vehicles built in the last 15 years already have brake lights, headlights, tail lights. They're already there. So I don't think that's going to be much of a concern for a safety aspect.
And mirrors, you don't think will be a concern if they're going to require mirrors? Because let's be honest, you have mirrors on your ATV, it's easier to see who's behind you.
Yeah, and I don't believe, I would have to consult the regulations. I don't believe there's currently a requirement for them on ATVs. I know there is a requirement to have a mirror of sorts on a snowmobile where, I mean, it doesn't have to be on the snowmobile, it can be on your glove or on the back of your hand or something.
Right.
So
Okay.
I'd have to check to be sure. Carolyn might actually know better than me. She's got a lot more off-road vehicle experience than I do.
Thank you, Jason. Carolyn, did you want to comment?
Yeah, there is no requirement from the Ministry of Transportation for there to be a mirror, but instead, part of our safety education as off-road vehicle organizations is to teach hand signals, much the same as motorcycles use.
Okay.
Right.
We have a motion to receive. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Okay, next up I have John.
Sorry, if I can interrupt, I did have one more question if I still have time.
Yeah, no, Greg, it's, in fairness, it's not a question and answer period. It is a deputation. I've kind of extended the rules because your deputation had, but really it is a deputation. Otherwise, we would get into long-winded debates.
Yeah, no, I understand completely. I just hope if some of those questions and answers help someone else, then I did my job, and that's great. Thank you. Appreciate
it, Greg. Thank you very much. Okay, next I have John Speer, followed by Arthur Hornbrook, followed by Sandy Hickson. Okay, Mr. Speer.
Yeah, good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. I can't see you yet, but I can hear you.
Oh, that's odd because I have my video turned on.
Okay, what I'm seeing is a green screen. Is the ceiling of your house green?
It is not.
Okay.
But as long as you can hear me, that's the
key.
key. And it's still morning, so good morning. And first of all, thank you for the opportunity to make a deposition today on this important topic. Fundamentally, my point is if more ORV road traffic brings even more ORV traffic into highly residential trail corridors, then I'm opposed to that. You know, this process and decision needs to be part of the larger master trail plan so that all things are considered. And if this is actually happening in advance of that unilaterally, then if I'm wrong about that, then I'm wrong, but it probably should be part of the bigger process and not sort of jumping a gun on recommendations. However, the main point is I wanted to, as you make your decisions about road use for ORVs, I ask that you acknowledge and respect the obvious differences between highly residential sections of trails versus open sections and plan for bypasses around high residential corridors. As an example, and it's been brought up a few times today, with respect to the VRT, Victoria Rail Trail, there's a well-known about 2 kilometer highly residential section, very dense with pedestrians. And it's 2 kilometers out of a total of 88 available kilometers on that trail. So what I'm asking and proposing for people to think about is the task force and the master trail plan start to think about bypass options for the 2% of the high residential corridor and pedestrian dense area, and allowing for remaining 98% of the trail to be available and enjoyed for motorized use as a sport, which is great. The residential corridor issues are unique in this way. There is a ever increasing volume. I've been on that section of the trail for 15 years. I can tell you 15 years ago, I might have seen 2 ATVs a week. And now my wife will not go up to our cottage on the weekends because it's an ATV highway. You know, it's difficult to go out and do an actual participation activity like cycle, jog, walk, because it's literally the volume of ATVs. And so she literally will not go up and enjoy what we purchased. Somebody talked about enjoying snowmobiles. Well, that is good. But in this residential corridor, we tracked 400 snowmobiles traveling at speed in one weekend. And I'm just proposing that that's unnatural and it's excessive and it needs to be considered differently than other decisions. You know, not to mention, like, when you get a volume of motorized vehicles going through effectively a neighborhood area, the noise levels, modified mufflers, speeding, I don't think people realize the people that are there in their neighborhoods, and that's where they live. There's a lot of people moving there and making homes of that area. It's just so incongruous. Local residents, I know for a fact, refrain from doing walking, cycling, jogging because of the volume of motorized vehicles. And you know, me personally, I used to like to run and do some stuff. And matter of fact, I'd be in the middle of a run and maybe 4 ATVs go by, kick up a cloud of dust, and I stop, turn around and go back the other way and go home, because I'm not going to run the next quarter of a mile breathing in dust when I'm out trying to go for a healthy run. Just real examples. Financially, people talk about it. The local property owners have made the largest investment in the area and are the real financial spend fabric of the town. Most motorized vehicles are transient and contribute a fraction of what the real neighborhood residents do with their property taxes, food, gas, supplies, restaurants, etc. So I'd like to deal in some facts sometimes as opposed to hearsay. Recently, the federal government announced a $400 million participation, specifically walking, cycling, jogging trail plan. It did not include motorized vehicles, right? 2006, there was a $50,000 study, master trail plan commissioned by the councillors, and with a detailed recommendation from a subject matter expert that said a bypass should be instituted for the high residential corridor neighborhood area, completely ignored by councillors and with no explanation ever given. So personally, I'm a little disappointed they spent $50,000 of taxpayers' money for a recommendation that they ignored. So there's a new master trail plan coming up, and I hope this time they maybe take the experts' recommendations. So in closing, what I'm really asking is that you fact gather and make road decisions and respect that residential neighborhood corridors are very different from open trails and open roads, and they need to be looked at differently, not in a self-serving way. It's just a fact that if it's a neighborhood, it's got dense people population on a narrow trail, and somebody said they want to drive their side-by-side there, and the response was, no, we don't want you driving your side-by-side with a high density of pedestrians. I would argue the nuanced difference. What's the difference?
John, you're over 6 minutes now. Would you please wrap up?
Yeah. So I don't know what the difference is. Motorized vehicles are motorized vehicles in a dense neighborhood area. So fundamental point, thank you for listening. I would like different consideration given to the high residential corridors versus wide open spaces. Everybody can enjoy doing what they want to do, but there are certain situations that need different decision points. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Can I have a motion to accept Mr. Speer's deputation? Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Don Mitchell. Do we have any questions for Mr. Speer? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? And that motion is carried. Okay, up next,
so much.
I have thank you, Mr. Speer. I have Arthur Hornbrook, Sandy Hickson, and John Bush. Mr. Hornbrook, please.
Thank you, Pat, and I appreciate being able to comment here and with the task force. I'm the president of the Kawartha Cycling Club, so my comments come via the Kawartha Cycling Club. And as a local club with members throughout the area, over 100 members in the area, we organize rides within the city of Kawartha Lakes and elsewhere, but on the trails, on the roads, and on gravel roads, which has turned out to be very popular. One of the primary objectives of the club is to foster and promote the sport and pastime of cycling in a safe manner. We also educate because we're bike instructors. It's easy to look up, and there's to do that with the cyclists, and it makes them ride safer because about 80% of the problems with cyclists are usually their fault, or at least related to something that they're doing. So if you educate them properly, you're going to have far fewer incidents. Currently, over the past number of years, we've worked with the city and participated in several initiatives, including the sustainability plan, secondary plans in the different towns and cities. And we've also done subdivision review in terms of trying to incorporate active transportation into those places. We've had some success, not a lot, but there's been some success. There was hope when the council approved the funding to develop an active transportation plan, which of course, we've been working on for over 15 years, but now we're actually going to go ahead and develop a plan. And that's working with Chris Marshall in the planning department. We've been working on it. We will continue to work very in future development. And it'll be an excellent plan for the town. So something you can bank off against to say, well, does it make sense to do certain things in certain areas? Unfortunately, the COVID situation postponed the project. It's taken a long time to get it off. The request for proposal has been completed, but it's hung up in finance. So this is going at a snail's pace. It's not nearly as fast as you guys. It'd be nice if we could get something going this quickly. However, that's the way it goes. But it is a significant step, and it gets us closer. As far as the task force input goes, we've informed our members of this and asked them to get their comments through if they have some or for it, and I'm sure they have. But the interest of the club itself is really through the active transportation plan. We believe it is appropriate that we should complete the plan, an approved plan, before designating active ORV routes within the city. A particular concern will be any proposals that impact current and future AT only trails. I believe it's been confirmed that existing AT trails will not be impacted. However, just as an example, when we do the plan, the active transportation plan, I would think that the Victoria Rail Trail from Thunderbridge Road up to Ken Reed Road would be considered an active road, active transportation road, and hopefully would eventually be paved. It would give such tremendous access to all the people of Lindsay to that wonderful conservation area in a very nice manner. It's not a big deal in terms of the routes you put forward, because it's just a matter of going up a very quiet road up to Ken Reed and having the trailhead there. That's just one suggestion, but it's one aspect of having an active transportation plan could help in terms of designating routes that go around or connect routes and that sort of thing. So in closing, our position is let's get the active transportation plan done. I'd really like to see council push this and get it going and make sure it gets done as quickly as possible, and that will help us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur, for your comments. Can I have a motion to receive Mr. Hornbrook's deputation, moved by Steve Lane, seconded by Kathleen Seymour Fagan. Do we have any questions for Mr. Hornbrook? All right, just a couple of comments. You were a little bit broken up, but I think I heard you say something about ATV only trails.
No, active transportation.
Oh,
active
okay.
Transportation only
Right.
trails.
Okay, I couldn't quite make that up. There's no recommendations coming forward from this committee that will change any use of any trails as they currently stand. We're just we're trying to find ways to connect people that haven't got a direct connection to trails to be able to connect. So as far as changing the use of any trails, that will be done by the master trail plan, which is due to come online, I think, this summer. When I was talking to the manager of Parks and Recreation. So that's due to come on, but this task force will be making no recommendations for any change of use of any trails in the city of Kawartha Lakes. Our mandate, our focus was on trying to find ways to get from one set of trails to the next. Okay, can I have a motion on the floor? All those in favor? And that motion's carried. Okay, up next I have Sandy Hickson, John Bush, and Phil Hudson. We got 5 more and we're all done, so we're getting there. Sandy.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank the Off-Road Task Force for all the work they've done up to this point and for giving the public an opportunity to speak. I'm a retired resident with a home in the lower Kawartha Lakes, a couple of concessions away from the trail, and a cottage up in just over the Halliburton boundary at the head of the Millennium Trail. So we use our ATVs a lot and our Skidoo. We've been avid ATV enthusiasts for the past 20 years. My husband and I, our children, and now our grandchildren enjoy these outdoor sports. We own 2 ATVs and a snowmobile and are members of both clubs. We love to skidoo in the winter and 4-wheel in the summer. Even if it's just to get out for a few minutes, go for a loop, go do the loop from our cottage. We can go out to Kinmount, get fries at the chip truck, come back in, and it just breaks up your day. It's a little bit of entertainment. We're fortunate to live in the Kawartha Lakes and can get out and enjoy our trails. As we've gotten older, we appreciate the fact that we can still get out, enjoy the outdoors. The trails are extensive and rugged in a lot of the areas we travel in, so having the ATVs allows us to still get out there and see the sights. Contrary to what people believe, most of the people we meet out on the trails are law-abiding, safety-conscious people who truly enjoy the outdoors. If not for these machines, a lot of people wouldn't even get the opportunity to see the vast area that we live in. In the past year, due to COVID-19, this sport has become even more popular. People realize the importance of getting outside and how much it benefits our mental health. It's an amazing way to get out there and enjoy the great outdoors. We all have our own way of doing that, and as taxpayers, have a right to choose how we enjoy the trails. Some people walk, horseback ride, run, bike, etc., while others prefer riding an off-road vehicle for physical or personal reasons. The Quartz Atv Association is made up of over 60 volunteers. The committee members work together tirelessly to keep our trails safe. Our memberships pay for machinery to build and maintain trails. They provide signage, training for trail wardens, training for young people just learning to ride. They organize a trail cleanup in the spring before the trails open, and I believe we are the only group of people that use the trails that actually do this. When there are storms, we have volunteers who go out and clear trees off the trails. Quite often we do this as well when we're out just for a ride, if you run into an obstacle. All of these things are done by volunteers, people who care and understand how important these trails are to our community. The ATV committee works hard to keep us informed about what's going on and what needs to be done to make it better and safer for everyone. That's our goal. Bill 107, the Getting Ontario Moving Act, is allowing municipalities to look at different options for ATVs and side-by-side use on roads. Council recommended setting up the off-road vehicle task force to look into ways to make opening up our municipal roads benefit this community in a safe and responsible way. When we became a member of the Quartz Atv Association, when we become a member of the Kawartha ATV Association, our off-road vehicles have to be licensed, insured, and the drivers have to have a valid driver's license. All these things contribute to our economy. It's expensive to own and operate these vehicles. We buy the proper safety gear required for riding, buy gas, have repairs done, eat meals, book accommodations, and so on. We spend a lot of money enjoying this sport, and it's getting bigger and bigger. They opened roads from County Road 8 or the Glenarm Road and north a few years ago, allowing road access to the main trails, and I believe that's been a success. Bentham Falls and Kinmount welcome the extra revenue as a result. Both are very busy tourist towns and are prime examples of how well this works. I think Bobcaygeon and Lindsay can benefit as well. People want a route to get through these two areas. As it stands, Lindsay is a dead end from our trail system. The task force has come up with viable routes to hopefully make it possible to connect with other trail systems to the south of us and to the east. I think this trail period they are proposing is a fair way to see if we can make it work. I just made a couple of notes on the side after. The intention of the task force is to open roads so they can access trails. That's the important part of it. These people need access to trails. Like us, we are going 2 concessions over to get onto the trail, and we're going right to the north end of the Victoria Rail Trail, right at the Halliburton boundary to get to our cottage. We can do that. It doesn't take long. It's a beautiful drive. It's just nice. But this means you can't just go for a ride on the roads. You just can't do that. If an ATV is on the road without a trail pass, you can probably assume they aren't insured or licensed. And our police service works hard to to regulate these offenses like any other vehicle on the roads. That seemed to be a concern with a lot of people, but that was one of the things I wanted to mention. Thank you very much for listening.
Can I have a motion to accept Sandy's deputation? Moved by Tracy, seconded by Steve Lane. All those in favor? Sorry, do we have any questions for Sandy? Seeing none, all those in favor, and that motion is carried. Okay, we're down to our last four, so I'm going to read all the names in. We have John Bush up, followed by Phil Hudson, followed by Carrie Bartlett, and followed by Chuck Moore. Okay, John Bush.
Yes, thank you. Thank you and good morning. Yes, my name is John Bush, and I'm the co-president of Environmental Action Bob Cajun, known as EAB. Thank you for letting me speak to your group today. I'll be as brief as possible and keep our comments to the point. I'd like to share a bit of background about us before discussing the topic at hand. EAB is a not-for-profit environmental organization in the village of Bob Cajun. To date, we've completed many environmental improvements within the village and have a strong following. We have had a good working relationship with city staff and council over the past few years. Our board of directors has asked me to speak today on the proposed ORV task force recommendations, and in particular, to open the many streets in Bob Cajun to ORV use. One of the EAB's noteworthy accomplishments is the completion of an active transportation plan for Bob Cajun, completed some 5 years ago. Senior staff of the city have a copy of the plan. The plan is all about how to improve the walking and cycling environment in and around town on streets and trails to encourage people to get out of their cars. The health benefits are, of course, are known widely. The plan was endorsed by City of Kawartha Lakes Council in 2017. Since then, we have implemented several improvements in the village. As we all know, with global warming and climate change, active transportation plans are a popular trend all around Canada, United States, and Europe. We also recognize, however, that ORVs are a popular sport in Ontario as a form of recreation. Everyone has their preference for recreation, and we acknowledge that. However, ORVs stand for off-road vehicles, and we think they should remain as that with few exceptions. We understand that new provincial legislation leaves it up to municipalities to determine which municipal highways or streets within towns and cities are open to ORVs. We also understand that the original purpose of this thinking was so that ORVs could get from one end of one trailhead to the start of another trailhead that requires them to travel on a city street or two. From our research, there are no such trailheads or trail ends or starts in Bob Cajun, at least not below City Road 8. Recently, street opening for ORVs seems to have been expanded to all streets in Bob Cajun, except for Bolton Street between King Street and Canal Street, for the purpose of better shopping and commerce for local business. While this is an interesting idea, it clearly contradicts the theme of the active transportation plan for the village by adding more gas-powered motorized vehicles, particularly in the summer season, when the streets are already crowded with cars, trucks, and motorcycles. Also, the recently completed Kawartha Lakes Healthy Environment Plan, once again endorsed by council, speaks clearly to reducing carbon footprint, not expanding it in urban centers. I won't get into debating which streets should be open to ORVs or not in Bob Cajun and the safety concerns, etc. Safety concerns have been well documented by others already. But rather, we strongly recommend that the city complete their active transportation plan for the entire city before making any decision on whether or not to allow ORVs on streets in Bob Cajun and likely other urban centers as well. ORVs can be part of the discussion during the active transportation planning process that will include stakeholder groups and public meetings so that a comprehensive, all-inclusive plan is developed that can stand for some time to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Can I have a motion to accept Mr. Bush's deputation? Moved by Kathleen Seymour Fagan, seconded by Carolyn Richards. Do we have any questions for Mr. Bush? Kathleen?
Go ahead.
Just a comment. I just wanted to thank Mr. Bush and the EAB group for all the work that they have put into the active transportation plan in Bob Cajun, as I know the city is also going to use it as a base for the active transportation plan across the whole municipality. I also just wanted to, to speak about Bob Cajun particularly, because it is where I have a business and I am the counselor. Yeah, we are looking at opening up the road so people can access the businesses. Many of the businesses have spoken in favor of this because of the off-season benefits of it. And I think that that's where we have to look at, not the summer. You're right. We're very, very full at that point. It's more the off-season, and that is when the ORVs are mainly used, the spring and the fall. And that's where we're looking. It's not for the summer use. It's not for the winter use. It is for the shoulder seasons to build that end of it. So I just wanted to clarify that, but I really appreciate, and as you know, I come to the meetings, I know what's going on and all the work that you guys put into it, because it's such a fantastic group and all the efforts that you've made. And the city is working well with you guys, and we're implementing many of the plans. So thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Lane.
Yes, Mr. Bush, thank you very much for.
We've lost your sound there, Steve.
Okay, how's that?
That's better.
Let me see if I can put it up. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Bush, for all your efforts that you've done in enhancing tourism in Bob Cajun and the environmental portion of that. One question I have for you is, how many members do you have of your group?
We currently have about 25.
25. Okay, I really appreciate your efforts, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Sorry, all in favor of receiving that deputation? And that motion is carried. Okay, next we have Phil Hudson, Carrie Bartlett, and Chuck Moore. My understanding is that Wallace Bradley did not come online at any time, Brianne? Okay, that's good. Okay, so last three, Phil Hudson, please.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep. Gotcha.
Excellent. My name is Phil Hodson. I am the owner of HB Cycle, a local ATV and side-by-side dealer. Of course, my speech is a bit self-serving, and I prefer to stay out of these proceedings, but I feel I should say my piece once in a while. As an ATV and side-by-side retailer, our company has proudly provided between 20 and 25 jobs for people in the Kawartha Lakes for over 30 years. We pay property tax, payroll tax, income tax, and support many local businesses. Modern ATVs are safer, quieter, and have better lighting than they ever have. These are not balloon-tired three-wheelers of the 80s. They are used and enjoyed by people with all walks of life. The next generation we expect to be electric-powered. Allowing people safe passage through our cities gives visitors a chance to pick up fuel and supplies and links the trail systems together. By giving clear direction and signage, we can let these vehicles pass with a minimum of disturbance. As for the trails, they only exist because motorized users cleared, developed, and maintained them. While they are shared with bicycles and walkers, it is doubtful those people contributed too much of anything toward the trails, and we hope they do pick up their dog poop. I doubt that an ATV idling through Lindsay is going to destroy or save the environment, and an ATV or side-by-side putting through Fenland Falls now barely raises an eyebrow. Signage and education is important, and respect and common sense must be used at all times. I believe we can let people pass through our towns without opening the doors to mayhem and madness. Thank you for letting me speak today.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Thank you for waiting for so long. I've got two more that I'm going to have to apologize for at the bottom of the list, but thank you very much for your comments. Can I have a motion to receive Mr. Hudson's deputation? Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Seymour Fagan. Do I have any questions for Mr. Hudson? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Thank you, sir. Okay, last two, Carrie Bartlett and then Chris Moore.
Hello, can you hear and see me okay?
We can, so.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, members of the task force and counselors today, to allowing me to speak. I am speaking in favor of opening these roads, and I'm going to kind of go into that. There are so many positive benefits of opening trails, opening roads to ATVs. It's not only just the tourism dollars, but it's the health and wellness and the benefits, and it's getting out in nature. One other thing, now I'm a snowmobiler, I'm an ATVer, I'm a hiker, I'm a cyclist, I'm a waterfall chaser, and I'm a big camper. So I do a multitude of sports, and I've been riding for over probably 30 years now between all of them. But I have a physical disability. I have arthritis. So I'm finding the older I get, the harder it is to me to do biking and to do walking and hiking, which I love. But being able to still ATV, then it allows me to get out. I can do 100 kilometers in a day, and the stuff that I get to see is unbelievable. But I wouldn't be able to do that without my ATV to see that. And that's, I wanted to touch base, like Bruce Fraser talked a bit about, he's getting out with his dad who's 80. And this is really the only way he can get out and get into the country and nature and health and wellness to see these. And this is the same with my dad. My dad's 74 and he's got some physical disabilities, and he could not get out and enjoy nature. And he always instilled that in me, all the hiking and the exploring and the waterfall chasing. But he can't do that unless he's on his ATV. But a big key piece is to link the roads. That allows us to go further and to do trips. I think a lot of people forget that what ATVers love to do and snowmobilers love to do is we love to go from a place and do a huge loop and visit all the towns in between and do the hotels and go to the restaurants and go in and get gas and meet people. And having that road connectivity will get that. Right now, Lindsay loses out on that. Bob Cajun loses out on that. Mimi, Bethany, they're all losing out on these great connects to have these people. People come up for weekends. This is what they want to do. And a lot of people talk about the greenhouse gases and that kind of stuff. And I'm sorry, but I almost have to laugh because our ATVs meet California emissions regulations. So we basically put out nothing. But if we're forced to travel, to use our big trailers and our trucks with V8s to trailer in between, we're adding to the greenhouse emissions. If we have the ATVs, we're massively reducing them. And noise concerns, again, yeah, my truck is louder than my ATV. So that I kind of laugh at that piece as well. But the biggest piece is we're forgetting about the group of riders that have these physical disabilities, whether they're minor or major, that need to still get out in nature and enjoy it. And this ATVs allow that. And the opportunity for the health and wellness of these people to get out and enjoy nature, the tourism dollars that this could bring in is huge. And the Kawartha ATV Association is an amazing association by the amount of money, the volunteer time, everything that we've put in to keep these trails open, the education we've done, the signage we've done, the enforcement we've done. This is just another huge step forward. So I 100% support opening more roads to ATVs to connect trails. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie, for your comments. Can I have a motion to receive the deputation moved by Steve Lane, seconded by Jason Ramsey? Just a couple of really quick comments. I understand that arthritis thing. I had to give up cycling about 5 years ago. I never called it cycling, I called it bike riding. But I had to give that up. It was just too hard on me. I was spending more time trying to stay straight and all that other stuff because, and it's all, so I'm down to walking. That's my chief sport. I've lost my favorite walking partner because she's got a bad hip. And until we get her hip replaced, I walk by myself now. So I do really appreciate your comments. Any questions for Ms. Bartlett? Seeing none, all those in favor? of receiving it. Thank you. The motion's carried. I did have a mover and a seconder, didn't I, Brianne? Brianne? I did? Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay, last deputation is Mr. Moore, Chuck Moore.
Hello, I hope everybody can hear me.
Thank you for being the last one. Thank you for hanging in there to the bitter end.
You know what? I'm the last one because I was late. Anyways, everybody that spoke so far, I forgot, I'm Chuck Moore. I have my own business and I enjoy outside. I've worked outside my whole life. And I just got into the ATV and snowmobiling this year, and I love it. My wife and I go all the time, and pretty well everybody that spoke, good, bad, whatever you want to call it, has valid points. But they've got to realize that this is a fun sport to be in. And I really think that you people are doing a great job on everything you do. And I think you do need to get the roads open because it will bring revenue. Businesses will grow. Right now is a good time to be doing this because the businesses have been kind of hurting. My business hurt a little bit in the spring of last year, so I know. Anyways, I'm going to keep this short because you've had all the stuff that I was going to say. Someone else has already said it. So, in hindsight, the only thing I would like to see is it opened to the east. You got the same amount of people walking on these trails in Fenland Falls, wherever. You accommodate for them, you do what you have to do, you slow down, you wave, you be nice. And the trails here, we walk, my wife and I walk this trail from Pickseed to wherever. Now, we don't see a lot of people. I snowmobiled on it this year. There's not a lot of people on that trail. You could open up that trail too, and that could connect to Lindsay too. That's all I have to say. I hope that stuff gets done, and you people are doing a great job. Thank you for letting me speak today.
Thank you, Mr. Moore, for your comments. Can I have a motion to receive Mr. Moore's deputation? Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Seymour Fagan. Do we have any questions for Mr. Moore? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that motion is carried. Okay, that's the end of our deputations. Is everybody still good? We've got probably another half hour to go. Nobody's waving at me for a break. Okay, thank you, Mr. Moore. Okay, so next on our list is correspondence on, I've done the minutes, let me check. Yeah, I've done the minutes. Okay, the next thing is correspondence. We have, at last count, 318 pieces of correspondence on this issue. Everybody's been given an opportunity to review that. Can I have a motion that we receive all the correspondence? Moved by Kathleen Seymour Fagan, seconded by Tracy Richardson. All those in favor? And that motion's carried. Okay. Just give me a second here, please. A second. Okay. Next order of business is reviewing our recommendations. So now I figure we have four options. Number one, we can move the draft recommendations as presented. We can reject the draft recommendations as presented. We can make amendments to the draft recommendations. or we can refer it back to the working group for further amendments. I'm looking for a motion so we can have a discussion. Councillor Richardson? Did you have a motion for me? I'm sorry, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry for that. I have a motion just based on a couple comments that were made today. Maybe we can add something in, Pat.
Sure.
Councillor Dunn.
All right, so we're going to, we have a motion to amend the recommendations, and can I hear your motion, please, Councillor Richardson?
Yes, at this time, we heard repeatedly today about the component regarding outreach and education. So I want to make sure that it's very well documented in those recommendations, that becomes a critical part.
Okay, so can I help you out? Maybe recommended that the City of Kawartha Lakes, in consultation with Kawartha, that they provide further education to all people anticipating or wanting to use ORVs on city roads and trails.
Yes.
That work? Okay.
That works.
Seconder for that motion. Seconded by Councilor. I just promoted you or demoted you, Carolyn. I'm not sure which, but seconded by Councillor Richards. Do we have any? Did it again, didn't I? By Carolyn Richards. There we go. Do we have any discussion on that motion? Okay. Seeing none, I'll call the question on adding that to the recommendations. All those in favor? And that motion's carried. Okay, so what we have now is we have an amended. We have amended recommendations. Do I have a motion? Do I have any further motions? Okay, so I need a motion going back to my original four. I need a motion either to adopt the draft recommendations as amended, reject all the recommendations, or return it to the working group for further discussion. Those are the three motions we currently have, those three options we currently have in front of us. Do I have a motion? Steve Lane.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the recommendations as modified today.
All right. I have a motion to adopt the recommendations as amended. Do I have a seconder for that? Okay, seconded by Don Mitchell. Okay, so right now, what the motion on the floor is the draft recommendations that we prepared, plus the addition of the educational component is the, so the motion is to forward that to as a recommendation to council. Do we have any further discussion on that? Kathleen Seymour Fagan?
Yes, so this would be sent to council for what meeting?
Okay, it'll go to council for the 6th of, I gotta check my calendar. I think the 6th is the first or the second Tuesday in the first.
Yes, that's committee of the whole, yes.
Okay, that's the, okay, so my recommendation is that I'll go to council for the committee of the whole meeting on the 6th. And decisions would be made by council, assuming that they work it into the agenda, that decisions would be made for council at the council meeting in April, which is the 6th, so it would be the 20th.
Okay, so in between then, because I still haven't gotten my report back from the OPP, we don't have Kawartha Lakes Police, we don't have the health unit. Will that all come into play? Should we have another discussion? This is what, because we don't have everything yet. We don't have it. I'm just wondering if we should wait.
All those reports will be forwarded along with the recommendation as we get them. We're running a survey that's,
okay.
I got to make this up. I think the cutoff date for the survey, which I'm going to talk about shortly, the cutoff date I think for the survey is going to be the 17th of April, and all that will be presented as part of the report. What's going to happen now, Councillor Seymour Fagan, is staff now has a direction to prepare a report. Those remarks from those agencies will be included in that report. That's what the plan is, because our recommendation will go forward as a report from Director Robinson.
I'm just wondering what would it hurt if we waited until the following? Like, when are the trails to be opened for the ORVs, like our trails? So I'm just wondering if we waited until the May one, what difference is that going to make? Just so we get more information, give staff more time, they get all the reports back. So I'm just wondering on that as well.
Trails are scheduled to be open on May the 1st.
And I'm in agreement with Councillor Seymour Fagan on this too. I think we need to have all pertinent information in.
Okay, that's fine. I'm easy. So that would be direction to the to Director Robinson, because he'll be preparing the report. So the direction would be, there he's online now. The direction would be to request him to have the report for the COW meeting in May. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, if we could put it off, I think we'll have more information at that point. I just don't think we have everything yet. And it is, people are still forming opinions on things, and we don't have the actual reports from the police or the health unit. So I think that's important.
And also we need to have the final results on that survey too, and be able to see that report.
Okay. Steve.
Yeah, does that mean our recommendations will not go to council until May? Is that what I'm hearing?
What would happen is that it would go to the committee of the whole meeting in May and be discussed at the council meeting following that at the end of May.
So it'll be May 4th for committee and May 18th for council.
Okay, May 4th for committee and May 18th for council. Sorry, just a second. We've got Director Robinson's got his hand up. Yeah, go ahead, Director.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to provide a bit of clarity, I guess. If the report that's going to be prepared by staff based on the recommendations from this task force will be brought forward to committee of the whole and then ultimately to council, should council accept those recommendations based on the task force resolutions, we still need to then bring forward an amended bylaw after that. So there's still some time after council makes this decision before the bylaw can be amended. So it'll be a month after that before the bylaw will be amended. We can look to try to bring the amended bylaw at the same time as the council report, but that might be a bit of a constraint from a staffing perspective. I will look into that.
Okay, all right. So the potential is the end of June. If in fact we delay it. Steve Lane.
Yes. So if it has to be a month after it gets passed at council in May 18th, if it is. So that would be June now. So the reports, can they not be, if we went and did it in April, like we were originally planning, the 6th, the committee of the whole, and then take it to council for the 20th, would the reports be in by then?
The survey will be completed 2 days before so the survey will be completed according to communications. The survey will be completed. Oh, let me get my calendar. Hang on.
It's completed after committee of the whole on the 6th, so it's completed before council meeing.
That's right.
So that's just one of the reasons why I'm thinking at this time we need to, look at this a little on a slower speed, just so we can do it properly.
Okay, so the survey will be completed on the 19th. We're recommending that the report come forward on the 4th of May for committee of the whole. And depending on, of course, the recommendation of the committee of the whole, it would be moved to council on the 18th of May. and potentially the director is going to see whether or not they could have a draft bylaw prepared for the 18th of May. If not, the draft bylaw would come forward on the 22nd of June.
No, it's June 1st is committee and June 15th is council that month.
So it would come forward on June the 15th. Carolyn?
I'm in agreement with these delays. It will give us as an organization more time to work with law enforcement and staff on the education piece to have everything ready as well. So, and I can get some input from, you know, people who spoke today, and it'll help us as well. So I think this is this makes sense.
So part of the recommendation would be that it be presented to committee of the whole at the May meeting, at the May committee of the whole meeting. Is that part of the recommendation? Okay. Now, do we have anything further? Okay, so what I have in front of me is I have a recommendation that the draft recommendations as circulated with the addition of the educational component be recommended to council, and that it be presented to council at the committee of the whole meeting in May. And is that understood by everybody? Is that where we're at? All right, can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Carolyn Richards. There we go. Now, do we have any further discussion? Seeing none. Oops, hold on. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, so Pat, so the committee of the whole is going to be going to, and then it'll be going to council on the 18th of May. Does that mean a bylaw will be presented that day, or will it be June?
Brian's going to, or sorry, Director Robinson's going to check and see whether or not he can prepare a, like as in whether it's permitted to prepare a draft bylaw. So that will depend on the information that he gets and staff's ability to create that draft bylaw. Potentially, there could be a draft bylaw in May. If not, the draft bylaw would come forward in June.
I just have a concern that it's being put off and off and off in the summer, and then before long, it's going to be probably the summer is going to be gone by the time we get it into.
Okay, I understand your concerns. Do we have any further comments? All right, so I'm going to call the motion. All those in favor of that motion? 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5. Okay, so we have agreement. That motion is carried. Okay, next meeting. Okay. Before I move into the next meeting date, the city, as of today, will start a survey of the city of Kawartha Lakes. Brianne, can you give us the information just so I don't get it wrong as to where they go to find and sign into the survey? Or do you want me to try?
I don't mind speaking to it. So the survey will be on the Jump In page. It will also be heavily circulated social media and through the press. I believe they're doing a press release. I will be reaching out to everyone who has sent in correspondence and send them the survey as well for input.
Okay. Hopefully everybody picked up on that. Okay, next meeting date. Our tasks for now, I think, are done until we get some further instruction from council. So how about the next meeting date will be at the call of the chair with appropriate notice. That works for everybody?
Fine.
Thank you very much. This has been a great process, in my opinion. Everybody has worked extremely hard to make it work. I thank every single deputation, regardless of what their position is. Everybody's put some heartfelt thought into it. And there's always going to be disagreement, but hopefully when this is all said and done, we can find something that works for the most of the people. Thank you very much, and this meeting's adjourned. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Sorry. Moved by Steve Lane, seconded by Don Mitchell. All those in favor? That motion's carried. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.